Hi everybody, Jack, roadstercycle.com. Hey, I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about my 3 builds I did, building my EV cars. My first Mustang that went to the Holley Corporation, or AEM. They bought my first Mustang, and then I have 2 more. A Volkswagen Rabbit that I took and did a split motor in, meaning that I split the motor and made a foundry at the house to build the reduction gearbox for it and stuff for that car. And my other Mustang that I made for me, which is my daily driver, which is a Model 3 motor and aux battery packs from EGT, Electric GT in California. During those builds, there was always little problems that I wasn't privy to or smart enough, or I wasn't educated enough to do some things that I needed help with. Okay, and a lot of it was CAN bus. CAN bus is not very hard, but for somebody who had no idea how it worked or how to work it or do it or anything like that, it's very challenging in the beginning. And if some of you guys are doing some later model cars instead of like the 60s or 70s retro, that type of stuff, it got complicated for me, and I did a lot of studying over the last couple of years and figuring things out. And what I decided, instead of building another car during that time, I decided to build some things that would help us and help you guys, which are some things I'll show you in a minute, but they're CAN bus devices that will help with you. Like if you're going to put a Real Dash in your car, called Real Dash. It's a program you download from the internet to make a dashboard in your car, so you have all the cool stuff on the dashboard. So there's that. A couple CAN bus things for the DC to DC converters. The ePass steering system out of a Ford Mustang 2012, 2015, same one that's in the F-150. Those are great units to adapt to your car, so you don't have to hear a Volvo pump running all the time if you want to have power steering. It's like the first Mustang I built, I hated the sound of that Volvo pump running all the time to do that. So I moved over and started using the ePass system from the later Ford Mustangs, 2012 or so, and you can buy those pretty easily from Detroit Axle in Michigan. So anyway, so that's what I want to say. Also, if you guys need help or you have a question about an EV build, or just curious what kind of costs it takes and that type of stuff, you're more than welcome to email me or give me a call, as long as it's during the day. I'm retired pretty much, but I do do this stuff, tinker and that type of stuff. So if you need a little help, or you're like curious about something, I don't have all the answers, I'll tell you right now, but I do have a lot of people who I deal with that if there's something I can't answer or don't really know the answer well enough for your question, I'm more than happy to reach out and get the correct answers for you guys. I mean, it was very challenging in the beginning to build one of these, and it's going to be challenging for everybody who's going to do one, unless sometimes you might have a little help or a little bump. Okay, so that's what I'm here for today. Show you a couple of things I developed for these things, and let's get after it. So this is my first setup. This is the CAN bus setup for a Mustang ePass steering rack, which comes on the 2012 to 2015 Mustangs and the F-150 pickups. Those racks you can put in your EV if you set it up to put in your EV. It's only a couple bolts, 2 bolts or 3 bolts, depending on how your frame is and what you want to do to put it in. But this is your high voltage one, or not high voltage, but 12 volt high amperage line. It's 6 gauge that goes to the ePass steering unit that plugs right in. And this is your CAN bus setup, which plugs right in to the ePass steering rack. And you just hook up your 12 volts, switch 12 volts to turn it on, and it'll be in sport mode. Really simple setup to do that. It drove me crazy for months figuring out how to do the CAN bus and everything. Nobody would help me. I called people. it wasn't pretty, but now I have it all figured out. And these are things I set up for guys. If you need to do that or you want to put that in your EV, I have it for you guys to be able to use as far as that goes. So that's that first setup. And on to the next. Okay, this setup is just the ePass CAN bus to be able to, if you already have the big heavy leads like the 6 gauge that goes to the ePass unit and need to just be able to turn it on to go into sport mode, this is the unit you would get, or the wiring harness that you would get. I've built thousands of harnesses for motorcycles and cars and helicopters. I was a helicopter technician or worked in research and development for years, so I'm pretty good at doing harnesses and stuff. So here's the one that you would just plug into your ePass unit, hook it again to switch positive and ground it, and you'll have your CAN bus signals going out to run the steering rack in sport mode. So this is my third thing. This is a Volt DC to DC CAN bus controller, which means that it will turn on the Volt DC to DC charger to be able to run at 14 volts. I run them at 14 volts in my cars because at 13.5 it's just not enough, and that's what like the Tesla DC to DC, when you just plug it in, it'll go 13.5 volts, but that's not enough to keep your battery from getting sulfated and stuff. So I run 14 volts, and that will also work for, you know, if you get running heat and air or anything like that. 14 volts is a lot better to have. You'll get some, you might get some issues if you're running 13.5 and don't have it up to a good 14 volts when you're trying to run heat and air, or if you got power steering, you go and hit the bump stop on power steering, you might get a fault there as far as that goes. But that's a little CAN bus unit that I developed, and this thing can be programmed to do other CAN bus messages also. So like if you have the Tesla DC to DC, I can program this to run the Tesla DC to DC. Very small, very compact. I mean, that's, you know, here's my hand, that's how big it is, really small. And that's the third thing I had and figured out over the years to help you guys with. Here's the fourth thing. I call it the RealCAN, and what it is, it's for taking 12 volt inputs, momentary or not momentary, into my device here, my CAN bus device, so that you can take and put in 8 entries into it, like a 2-wire temp, over temp switch, or a 2-wire oil gauge, or that type of stuff. It won't do a 1-wire because they ground on the inside. We need to turn on and off so that when you plug it in and you give it power, it'll turn on a CAN bus message. And there's 8 of them, and it'll turn on, you know, 8 different messages to be able to use like a real dashboard to be able to put different things up on it that you want, like turn signals if you want to do turn signals. I use it for neutral, reverse, and drive in my cars to be able to, you know, have it come up on the dash and have an R and an N and a D. That works. I also have it for the park brake, like on my Tesla stuff. When you hit the button, a P comes on that shows it's in park. So it's very universal to what someone might need to plug CAN bus into their real dash. So those are the 4 things I've developed over the last year and a half or so. The things that have drove me crazy to try to get working in my cars, just because of, you know, not knowing enough, you know, or not being educated enough. But now I got pretty more educated on it, or a lot more educated on it, and that's why I have these now to help people out in their builds. All right, there we go. Well, there you have it. That's the 4 things I've developed for I would say the industry, or the DIY industry, over the last year or so, or year and a half or so. And these were things that drove me crazy when I was doing my car. Not a lot of people knew how to help me as far as getting the ePass unit running or working in my Mustang, so I'd have a quiet, you know, power steering as far as that goes, or power steering, you know, electric power steering, instead of having that Volvo pump running constantly and driving me crazy. But those are things that are just things you run into when you're building the DIY electric cars. So many questions that hopefully I can answer, that if you want to email me or give me a call or that type of thing, totally welcome to. It's no big deal. As long as, like, you know, like I've said before, just during the day is great as far as that goes. But my Mustang's running great. My dash, I have a real dash in it set up, and it works great. It works great with my real CAN controller as far as putting, you know, 12 volt signals in and having the CAN bus come up so that real dash can read it and say whether it's a high beam or a low beam or this or that. So really excited about that stuff, and hopefully this may help you guys out. I hope so, because we could use a lot more EVs out there on the road. Just remember to be safe when you're doing the EVs. That's 400 volts is pretty shocking, no pun intended. So that's it. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.